Katie, what is the lead service line inventory project?
Before December 31st, you may receive a letter in the mail from the City of Ripon stating you have either a lead service line, a galvanized service line, or a unknown water service line. It is our goal to identify all of these service lines.
And Dave, why is it important for residents to know if their water line contains lead?
If you do discover that you have a lead water service, it can be harmful to everybody, but particularly young children and pregnant women. You should take some extra precautions.
So Katie, what's the easiest way for residents to help?
You can call to report your material. It's 920-748-4900. You may also go to the service line reporting page, take a photo or multiple photos and upload. That's at cityofripon.com/service line reporting. You can also simply schedule an appointment at cityofripon.com/water utility, and an operator will come and identify the service material for you.
So you just learned about it, now go check it out and report it. I'm here today to help identify the 4 different service types that we find commonly in town. We've got the newest type. We got plastic. Plastic can come in blue and black. We have a lot of houses in town that have copper. Copper looks like penny, but a lot of times in the basement, it's going to look a little more dirty. One of the best ways to identify copper, if it looks dirty, is sometimes it might have a blue tint to it, or a patina, or a green patina. And you can also scratch it and get that nice brownish copper shine to it. The 2 that we're most concerned about, if you don't have a copper or plastic line, are galvanized and lead. They look very similar. You have 2 galvanized lines here and a lead line. Best way to identify galvanized is with a magnet. A magnet sticks nice and strong to galvanized iron, but nothing to lead. The other ways to identify galvanized is usually threaded. The thread there, and lead is always going to have like a lead ball connected. Lead is usually thicker, and it also shines up when you scratch it. You can scratch it with a key, a knife, or a coin, but it gets nice and shiny. Whereas if you can scratch this galvanized, it will continue to stay kind of a dull gray. And that's it. If you have any questions, please give us a call, or you can email us and set up an appointment if you need help identifying your water service material. Thank you.
Dave?
Hey.
Hi, I got a letter in the mail and I'm supposed to check out my water service. It says that I have an unknown water service line.
Yep. So it's going to be downstairs.
Okay.
By your water meter. Okay. Most likely. So why don't we head downstairs?
Do you know where it is? Can you show me?
I'm sure we can find it.
Let's go downstairs.
A lot of times it's on the wall closest to the road, but sometimes it's in the middle of the house.
It's probably in this area.
Usually exactly where the water meter is.
Here's my water softener. Is it right here?
Yep. Look at that.
Oh, okay. There's my
Here's the water meter. Right here is your service material that we're looking for. And it looks like it's galvanized, but got a magnet. See? And there it sticks. So you have a galvanized line.
A galvanized line.
Yeah.
Okay, so what do I do from here?
If we know that previously it was fed by lead, then we have to have a further discussion.
Okay.
But for our records, we'll be able to make it so it's not an unknown in our records, and that's all we're looking for. As far as a homeowner, if you have galvanized, we do encourage you to replace it within a good given amount of time. If it's copper, it's a safer material. So.
Okay. Well, very good. So you'll take care of it from here.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
All right. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Started here, so I call the meeting to order at 7:02. Could we have roll call, please?
Baker?
Here.
Ellis?
Here.
Gatsky? Hudson? Iverson?
Here.
Weimer?
Here.
Staffinger?
Here.
Sorensen?
Here.
Split?
Here.
Have a quorum.
Yep, 7-7.
And Ellen, we did hear you that time.
Okay, great.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Gracious and loving God, let your peace reign upon all here as they determine the greater good for the community. Help us to always keep in balance the individual and the collective, and that we need to always remember both and to respect each other as part of people trying to walk beside one another and make things happen in the community. Be with all the decisions made. Let your blessing rest upon all here. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Is there a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
I have a motion by David, second by Steve. Any discussion on the agenda? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is approved. No one has signed up for public comment. So we'll move right into our first agenda item, which is to review and possibly select RFP response for engineering services for the pilot well and municipal well number 10 development. We have two, for lack of a better word, finalists for the RFP. They are both here to give presentations this evening. We're going to hear from both Donahue and MSA in that order, just alphabetical. During the presentation, for Donahue, we'll ask MSA to step outside and vice versa. For the council, you can ask questions during the presentation. After the presentations are done, they will both be dismissed and we will discuss just amongst the council. Is that clear? All right, MSA, if you could step out. Thank you. And Donahue?
Just have a couple of handouts here. I'll pass around the group.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome. All right. Thank you for having us tonight. My name is Autumn Fisher. I am a client services manager with Donahue and Associates. So for this particular project, I would serve as liaison supporting Susan Walkowitz, who would be the project manager. So just a little bit about Donahue. If you open up the folder on the right-hand side, there are some handouts in there. So just from a firm perspective, we have about 155 employees. So we are a Midwestern firm with the highest percentage of employees right here in the state of Wisconsin. We are employee-owned, and we do have all of those engineering disciplines in-house. So we do perform all of those services in-house for anything engineering related. We are a water-focused firm, so in the state of Wisconsin, we are solely focused on water, or the only firm fully focused on water. So that's water, wastewater, and stormwater. You can see the map here on the left that we have a variety of different clients throughout the state of Wisconsin representing water, wastewater. Some of those clients we provide both services for. And most importantly, I think for this project, or a key component for this project, is funding. That is one of our areas of expertise. So we have helped clients secure roughly $155 million in rebates and grants, and $1.3 billion in project funding for our clients throughout the Midwest. So another area of expertise. I'll be supporting with funding efforts on the project for the scope for this, and so will Susan. So I'll kick it to Susan. She'll go through the approach for how we would actually deliver the project and what scope of services we would provide.
So you do have several handouts in your packet. The packet that I'm going to speak, or sorry, the handout I'm going to speak to is, probably the second one there. And this is just really a summary of, the information that was provided in our proposal. So again, I'm Susan. I've been doing this for 30 years now, which is kind of hard to believe when I look at that number, but it's true. I grew up in a well drilling family in Wisconsin, had the opportunity to leave the state for a while to earn my degree at Harvard, and then decided that my heart is really here in Wisconsin, and so came back. I've been, like I said, in the business for about 30 years. I'm very hands-on when it comes to construction. And I like to be out in the field, so I would be your person who's, out there with the drill rig. We do certainly have staff to support me in that role, but I like to be very involved. So just the approach for the project, and again, the focus here from what our understanding of the project is looking at the pilot well, but we did respond to the RFP scope of services, and we did provide information on not only doing the pilot well, but also the cost for designing a well house, which obviously the well needs to be housed in some kind of a building, potential for chemical feed, and then, the site improvements. We need to connect the well to the rest of the system. We need to provide things like backup generation. We need to provide access to the site. So we did include all that information in our proposal. But I just wanted to talk through our approach to really looking at the pilot well. This is a really key component of the project. Identified a well site on the south side of town. But we really need to look at that site, and you've got actually identified the potential for 2 wells, well 10 and well 11. The 2 possible sites are about 900 feet apart.
Sorry, I don't.
Got help here, I guess. I don't even know when that. So the 2 potential well sites, 10 and 11, are about 900 feet apart. There are some private wells located to the south and to the southeast of the well site, so outside of the city limits, it would appear. Those are a couple of things that we're going to need to look at. We want to look at, the potential for impact to those private wells. We want to look at the potential for interference between the 2 wells. And then we want to also look at the water quality and the information from your existing wells. And I always tell people, we can look at well records as far as the geology goes, from 100 years ago. I promise you the geology has not changed. We're working in the geologic time scale. So while the pumping equipment might be different, the well records themselves, as far as the geology that was encountered, the color, what we're looking for when we're trying to identify specific zones of the aquifer or the subsurface to use for drinking water, we're really looking at the characteristics of the underlying geology. So if you look at a geologic map, you'll see various layers that have been laid down at different times over history. But when we're drilling a well, what we're really trying to do is look at the existing conditions and correlate in the data that we have available. So the historic record, your existing wells, and trying to correlate those to information that we can gather as we're drilling a test well. For example, the color, of the formation, the grain size, those kind of things that we're going to be looking at as we drill the well. So just laying out kind of the overall process here. We would start by looking at the existing records. We would work with city staff and to get their input on the strategy for the test well or the pilot well. There's several different ways that we can go about this. We can drill a well through the upper, or we can case off the upper sort of what we call unconsolidated formation, and then we can use a few different strategies, whether that would be casing off that upper formation and then going into the sandstone to see what conditions we have below grade, and using packers or different zones of test pumping to identify the water quality. Or through that records review, we may determine that some of those formations just are not super viable for a water quality or a water yield basis. So that's the kind of information we would be looking for in the records review, working through it with the city, then going ahead to drill the pilot well and gathering that data and providing that information, to city staff and to you all, so that you can make a decision on, is this the place for a well? And then one of the other key things is it treatment needed at that location? You've got treatment at some of your wells, not at others, and it's certainly something you want to plan for as you're drilling a well, designing a well site. And then, of course, like I said, we did include our costs for designing the full, well building to house the well with chemical treatment. If we would need to use treatment, then of course we would have to evaluate what treatment is required and the size of space we need. So really trying to look at a very holistic approach. One thing that we did also look at in our scope of services is to look at not only this well location, but how this well fits within the rest of your system and the potential for upgrades there.
And I guess another key component, as I said, was the funding piece. So throughout this entire process, what we would do is we would collaborate with the city on what those funding strategies would be, areas that we could potentially receive grant funding or congressionally directed spending. We know that you had submitted previously, it wasn't successful, but we can try to do that again, for example. So just trying to take unique approaches to funding throughout all of this, collaborating with DNR, collaborating with PSC, and just making sure that we're communicating with all the stakeholders. So the last page just included some additional references with contact information. Each of those projects include scopes that are very similar to your project. So we did execute pilots, alternatives evaluation, some phased implementation of different strategies for upgrades for their water distribution systems. Some additional major water projects are featured in the lower right-hand corner as well. So, we're just really looking forward to the opportunity to collaborate with the city, collaborate with your groups, your teams, and go through this evaluation process and set up the best strategy possible for what is a really important project for your community. It's going to be a major upgrade. It's going to be a major investment. You want to make sure that you do it very strategically for the long run, for the long haul. So we hope to be able to do that with you.
Anyone have any questions? Mark?
I see in the cost proposal that you have the funding specialist listed, but it is marked as TBD. Is that because internally you have a resource that you just haven't scheduled out that far yet? Or are you guys adding into that group and hoping in? I'm just curious why everyone else was listed except for the funding specialist for this.
I think, so that was specifically, I think, for that person's billable rate. So it was going to be a blended rate between Susan and myself. So we would be tag teaming the funding efforts for the project.
All right, thank you.
I think one thing that's unique for us is that our technical people handle the funding piece of it. So it does, I think gives us efficiency because we already know what the project involves. And we can write, write a detailed scope for a funding application, explain what the project is. We certainly have some staff that will support our efforts and work with us, but we're very hands-on. We understand the project and know what's going on.
Thank you.
Julian?
3 quick questions. One, first of all, thanks for coming. First is it says that why this approach works. Pilot first strategy minimizes financial risk. 1, can you say, is that a different approach than what you foresee others taking? Typically, 2, can you give some examples of some wins for funding that you've worked with cities that maybe you didn't think that they weren't finding on their own?
Sure.
That you helped? And then lastly, was there anything else that you can say as far as something that was unexpected when you were on a project that you can point to, this is why we bring this expertise and kind of collaborative effort that will be helpful if the unknown happens?
Sure. Well, as far as the pilot first strategy, I would say that was required, or that was asked for in your scope of work. It would be very typical for a municipal well to do a pilot well first. Now, the approach to that pilot well could be somewhat unique, and I think looking at the existing records is, an important part of that strategy. Like I said earlier, the geologic records don't change over time, and there is a lot of information as far as geologic maps, existing well construction records, especially when we're right there in, kind of on the edge of town. We've got a number of private wells. There's even like a geothermal well that will give us some information. Specific information that'll help us get is the depth to bedrock, because generally it would appear that we want to be into the sandstone aquifer, but we want to try to understand how deep that is and how much casing we can put in the ground. And then we want to try to understand what the static water level is and the potential for well yield at that location. And also potentially water quality. And one thing I forgot to mention earlier is that with those nearby private wells, one of the things we can guide you through is in the DNR review, you submitted your well site investigation report already. The DNR has approved the well site, so we would be taking it from there. But one of the comments or conditions in that approval is that if there would be the potential for impacts to private wells, and I certainly don't want to scare anyone, that that would have to be addressed potentially. So we would want the city to know that going in. And one thing I've worked with communities in the past with is doing inspections of those nearby private wells. And that's something that we can guide you through. I've done those kind of inspections myself. But we would likely have, a local well driller, pump installer, somebody who does well inspections, work with city staff. Remind me of the second
Yeah, other two
question.
questions. One was just for an example of funding that you helped, helped the city get that maybe they weren't getting on their own. And then the other examples of something that was unexpected that you were like, we can point to, this is why we provided this value because of our expertise.
Sure. As far as the funding goes, we're actually able to, so one of the primary funding mechanisms for water systems in Wisconsin is the Safe Drinking Water Loan. That's a program administered through the Department of Natural Resources. It's money that comes from the federal government to the states. It's a revolving loan fund. We were actually just very recently able to secure funding for, and I should back up. That program has what they call principal forgiveness. So it's basically a grant award. You can get up to $1.6 million of a project in grant money. Basically, you don't have to repay. We were actually able to secure for a city for a water main extension project, about 2.2 miles of water main. For the city of La Crosse, we were able to secure 2 safe drinking water loans.
Could I have you step forward to the microphone?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. We were actually able to split the project and use 2 different sort of pots of money, one for emerging contaminant response and one for the regular safe drinking water loan. So we were actually able to get them, I think it was like 1.6 plus $2.1 million of grant money for one project. So that was pretty exciting.
So you would work with our city administrator, Adam, for example, and to bring up those ideas.
Right. And the other, there are lots of other funding mechanisms. We have a close contact with USDA Rural Development. There's the State Trust Fund program, which is just loan money, but it's generally low interest loan money and easy to obtain. There's also the WIFIA program, which is a federal program, which could be used for both water and wastewater, which I understand you may have some wastewater improvements coming down the pipeline potentially. So yeah, there are a lot of different options to look at. There's also CDBG, which is the block grant program that has a very specific process with applications due in May. So yeah, we can assist with any of those. And then I think the last question was something unexpected, where our expertise was really able to help with a project. I think the La Crosse project is a really good example of that, where we were actually able to utilize our funding expertise. And the project started out as a response to PFAS contamination. And the city has in that case, they have lots of water capacity in their system, but it was one particular area of their city that was impacted by the PFAS. So rather than implement treatment, which would put the city under a lot of future operation and maintenance costs, we were able to look creatively at a solution and then design and build this transmission main, which is going to bring water from another part of the city to the area that was impacted with PFAS. And then, like I said, build the funding into that. They're also going to be able to use some additional funding money that was originally allocated for the the treatment system for a new well. So we're really able to, with that kind of creative strategy with the project manager the well expert, the water system expert being involved with the funding, we were really able to maximize the money there and tailor the approach to their system.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Steve?
Just a couple questions. You mentioned that, well, obviously there has to be a pump house. You're going to have a reservoir or something like that? I'm assuming, and, well, that was one of the questions.
Yeah, so that's a great question. So there's a couple different ways to do that. There's really, I should say, two different ways. You would not have to have a reservoir. I believe your existing wells do have reservoirs, so you're basically pumping from the well into a reservoir and then from the reservoir out into the system. And that reservoir at the well or at the well itself might be, I don't know, 100,000 gallons, 50,000 gallons. They're not real big. They're just used to kind of provide that sort of cushion. You can also use it for mixing for your chemicals. Now, you would not have to have a reservoir. You can pump directly from the well itself through a treatment system if you need a treatment system, or if you don't need a treatment system, from the well itself right into your distribution system.
Okay, and the second question was, well, you already kind of covered it. If there's radon in this water, that would be filtered or taken care of?
Yeah, so if we find with the pilot well process, we would be running as part of that process the full suite of Safe Drinking Water Act parameters. Everything from the radon, which is one of the radionuclides, to radium, you have to run uranium. We would be running any of the inorganic contaminants, which are naturally occurring, things like iron and manganese. Those are considered secondary parameters, which you do have some of those in your water already, so I'm not going to be surprised if we see some iron and manganese. Also looking at, the general descriptions of the geology there, the sandstone, I won't be surprised to see some iron and manganese, because the sandstone formations here tend to have some glauconite in them, which is kind of a sponge for the heavier metals. So that's something we want to keep an eye on. But yeah, any kind of treatment, we would be looking at all those parameters, the forever chemicals now, the PFAS, VOCs, all those things would be identified with the test well, with the pilot well.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Actually, more of a question for Adam. Did the DNR approve both well sites in our, okay.
So they essentially gave conditional approval to both 10 and 11 on the site.
Okay. The reason I asked that was just in the event that, we pilot well at 10 and we find out that it's not cost effective, or, maybe potentially, there's some sort of contamination or something there that we would just rather avoid, going immediately to well site 11. Have you seen that? Well, that was more kind of generally to us, that we have that option there, which is
We
beneficial.
probably don't, though, from the perspective of where it's located.
Yeah.
So
It's too close.
So just, we'll
Not
be back
really,
to well
yeah.
site investigation if we have a
Send us all the
problem.
way back. Okay.
So that's part of the, there's different avenues, we'll talk about this, but there's different avenues this could go based
Yeah.
on the pilot well.
Okay. Yeah, that wasn't, less of a question, more of a comment. And
But if it's good,
wondering.
then we're good.
Yeah, if it's good, then we have two sites.
Exactly.
And plenty of capacity there. Then.
Yes, yes.
Julie?
My last question is, and probably you've seen, this is public, for tonight, the other firm that's presenting, we have a rating, you're both neck and neck. And so I guess before, my understanding is we don't have to ask you another question. Are you just able to, it sounds like you already have researched the Ripon area. Is there any last thing that you want to say? It sounds like you've already done some research in Ripon. And does this fit into your timeline? I mean, how much attention would you be able to give to Ripon? Basically, is there anything else you want to say as to why, when it's neck and neck, why we should choose you?
I mean, like I said, I grew up with this. I mean, I always tell people there's water in my blood. Probably one thing I also offer, and that we can offer is, well, two things. I do serve as the vice chair right now of the American Water Works Association Standard on Wells, which is really the definitive guideline for well construction. It's used nationwide, worldwide. It's an international accredited standard. I've been doing that for about 12, 13 years now. And eventually I will be taking over as the chair in a couple of years. So that's, something I think unique. We also have a very robust group of people. We've mentioned the funding, but we also have a very robust group of people who are very capable to assess the water quality and recommend treatment. We have, if you had a chance to look through some of the resumes, we've got folks with a lot of experience in many different conditions. We have a PhD chemical engineer on staff. We have folks who have a lot of credentials, have just seen a lot of things. So I always say, if we can't treat it, it can't be treated. But I mean, we have a lot of depth with water treatment. So we do bring that to the table. Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Anyone else? All right, well, thank you for your presentation.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And sorry about Siri.
Get lost.
I don't know if there was anybody maybe not in attendance tonight.
Yep, you can leave one. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, sure. I should use two.
Yes, please. And just a reminder for everyone to speak into your microphones tonight.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity here.
Hold on. One sec. Let me. What did I do?
Signal.
How did this open? What did I do?
Do you want it to be one screen?
Okay, think I got it. Got it.
All right.
Magic.
All right. Thanks, Adam. Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity here to be in front of the council again for this project. Rob Uphoff, Senior Vice President, MSA. Been at MSA for 36 years. And tonight with me, I have Brad Stuchinski, who I hired in 2003. And he and I have been working on wells at MSA since that time. So I think between the two of us, virtually every well probably that you're going to see on that list later, he and I have probably worked on together. So I'm going to turn it over to Brad, though, to start and kind of just go through the outline a little bit, some of the things we're going to talk about, and then I'm going to fill in a few blanks here if there are any and answer any questions. So, Brad?
Good evening. Once again, thanks for the opportunity to be considered on this important project for the city of Ripon. Outline 4 points tonight that we want to talk about. Our well-design expertise and how that can benefit the city of Ripon. We'll get a little bit into our approach and share some stories of projects that have gone poorly in the past and what we can learn from those. Second point we want to talk about is the funding, how we can maximize funding for the city of Ripon, what MSA brings to the table with that. Third point is a budget-conscious approach, just to making a design in the best interest of the city, and as also just the fourth point would be the water treatment plant design, but also more the breadth of services that MSA, and we have experts to do all sorts of things from architecture, water treatment, site design, site utilities, planning, funding, and all of that. So we have a team that could take care of all those needs. If you could advance the slide. So what are the challenges with constructing a well number 10 in the city of Ripon? Though it may be hard to read, but we have a whole profile of the wells that are currently active in the city of Ripon, and that's 9, 6, 8, and 5. And we're going to continue down the southeast to a proposed well number 10. And there's quite a bit of variable water quality amongst the 4 active wells. The treatment varies quite a bit, and well number 9 has aeration for VOCs. Well 5 has rapid sand filter, and others, all of them have chemical addition to some degree. So what that water quality is so important for the water quality for the city, and getting the well design right is such an important piece to this project. So however we design that test well phase, that first phase, and the subsequent well design is going to have impacts for the city for decades, especially when you consider treatment and the cost of treatment and ongoing maintenance and operation. So our approach is to maximize and optimize the water quality, and starting with the test well, it would be installing the casing, doing some packer testing. We'd be looking at figuring out which of the aquifers is going to produce the best water, looking mostly at the Elk Mound and the Trempealeau, maybe some blending from the Dolomite. We'll do packer testing and really investigate in that test well design to optimize the water quality. If you could go ahead. So just a couple of projects that we wanted to highlight. Horicon well number 5. That was a project where through an extensive well siting effort and 2 test wells and a lot of conversations with DNR, we were able to produce well number 5 that avoided radium treatment. The first test well had very high radium. We moved sites, had to do a lot of packer testing, investigating on the test well, and ended up with a great solution for the city of Horicon. One other, comment about Horicon was that MSA proposed on that, and at that time, there was a competing firm that said, why even waste time on a test well? Just go right to treatment. We can take care of the solution. It took a while on the test well phase, but I think in the end, we had the best water quality that we could get from the aquifer. Another story that we would just want to touch on is New Lisbon well number 7. New Lisbon has had a history of challenging water quality. When we were involved, Rob and I, they already had abandoned 3 of their wells due to poor water quality. They actually built a final well and a treatment plant and never pumped it to the system because the water quality was so poor. Even the iron filter couldn't treat the water. And that had to do with, they drilled the test well and then they moved, and the final well was very different from the test well. So even moving a little bit in the geology proved to be a costly mistake for the city of New Lisbon. Through our well siting investigation and efforts, and we were able to find a location outside of the city that had really the best water quality the city had of all their wells to date, and the highest pumping capacity. Advance the slide. This was in the proposal. As Rob mentioned, of this list, I think Rob and I have worked on over half of them and been involved in our experience at MSA, and there's a lot of experience to bring to the table and to trying to optimize the water quality for the city of Ripon.
So I just want to talk a little bit about funding. So obviously, one of the primary funding programs that we'll be looking at is the Safe Drinking Water Loan Program. In the last 5 years, we submitted 56 of those and secured $20 million in PF, principal forgiveness or grant, and another 57 in low-interest loans. I would say since 2013, I look back, and I think we have secured $45 million in grants and about 130 some million in low-interest loans. So that's just safe drinking water. We've done clean water, CDBG public facilities. We've accessed USDA rural development, EQUAG, which is the emergency funding program. That program's kind of gone through some changes. They don't have very much money right now. I talked to rural development here in the past week or so. But we also then submitted an appropriations request for the city for this project. Haven't heard anything back on that I'm aware of, but certainly have a long history. We have a team of, if you looked in our proposal, Brittany Mitchell, she leads a team of 17 people that all they do is funding. That's what they do for us across the 4-state region. So really proud of that group, and I would say even on the safe drinking water loan program, there's some changes that may be coming up in the next year or two, and when the DNR was getting ready to consider those, they had Brittany and I and one of our wastewater engineers come down to Madison to get our input on what changes might be good for the program. So we have a really strong relationship, not only with the funding group at the DNR, but then just the DNR staff in general. So if I go one more slide, I guess I just wanted to show the success we've had here in Ripon itself. So started working here probably 2019 or so, and since that time you can see the different programs that we've accessed, but we've been able to assist the city in securing over $7.5 million worth of grant. That doesn't include the low interest loan. So just had a lot of great success, and that's to date, and that's so far, and we'd like to continue to get more money for you for future projects. So that's kind of our funding group summary. So I'm going to pass it back to Brad.
I guess the third point, just a budget conscious approach. It comes from my farm background, but I'm always looking to meet the design goals, but be budget conscious. And I guess one project that's close by in Green Lake, they have PFAS, some of the higher levels in the state. And in terms of a long-term solution, we worked with the city to come up to work through a feasibility study, and I think there's good potential that a new well would be less costly than treatment. However, in that interim, we looked at temporary treatment, and what's common is to have a trailer rental and pay those fees. And working with the city, we were able to reduce the gallons per minute just a little bit and maximize the treatment in their tiny well house. So there's a lot of piping in there. We had to remove almost one wall completely to get all this equipment in, but we were able to figure out a way that I think was a very cost-effective solution for the city of Green Lake. You can advance the slide, and our hope is that we can find a well that doesn't require advanced treatment. But if it goes to advanced treatment, we have a lot of experience and expertise to bring to the table. This is a list of projects that have been working on personally. Ripon Correctional, we have a radium removal plant there, Cambridge, iron removal and softening. I mentioned the Green Lake project, Adams. Just a couple of weeks ago, put Adams online for PFAS removal, and there's a picture there of the two vessels being installed by a crane, and in progress right now, working on with the city of Menominee on iron, manganese, and radium removal at that facility as well.
So I think just in general, I think our approach here is that I think over the years, we've learned that the siting of the well and development of the well, drilling of the test well is the most critical point of this project. Just spending the time and energy now to make sure that where we have the final well, because it's going to be there for 100 years, right? And that's the most critical point. So we invest a lot of time in reviewing the geology, but then during the drilling phase, it's analyzing the cuttings, it's doing additional testing, it's doing our field testing with our equipment, so that we're confident as we can be. Obviously, you're drilling a hole in the ground, that we're going to get the best water quality for the city in the long run, and trying to avoid treatment if we can. But we probably would design the facility, obviously, we wouldn't be, to allow for future treatment, right? And it may not be for what we are regulated by today, but we're usually setting up these sites so they're large enough so that if the DNR or the EPA comes down with some other regulation, that we have room at the site and we can easily build on if we need to. So that's a big part of our approach. And then obviously the funding, right? You know, I'd have to say I'm incredibly proud of our group that we've had a lot of success. When I first came to MSA, there was 2 people that did funding, and now we have 17. So we're constantly trying to find more money for our clients. I think, you know, we've been able to do a lot of work with the City of Ripon, and I think part of the benefits to carrying along one consultant is familiarity with the client, and then just, I think there's going to be some benefit of cost savings when we get down the line and we're building the well house, doing some other construction. We will have staff here, you're right, they're working on other projects. Sometimes they're the eyes and ears over here, so instead of a single entity coming over or us bringing over some specialty service, you know, we probably have people here that would be able to address, you know, any construction issues. So those are just some of the main points I wanted to kind of get across. So I'll pause there and open it up to questions. Sorry.
And just another reminder to speak directly into the microphones. They're having trouble hearing online. Doug.
Thank you. Do you know the cause of Green Lake's PFAS, and would you anticipate that to be a problem for our proposed well site?
That's a great question. So in Green Lake, we have
if you could speak into the mic, please.
Thank you. We have not definitively identified the cause of PFAS in Green Lake, but we have a really good idea where that would be coming from. And to definitively define that takes effort and investigation, and it might not always help you with what you're dealing with. So I guess that's Green Lake. To the question of Ripon, it's a good question. So far we know that the 4 existing wells do not have PFAS above any proposed limit. So that's good news for the city. However, there's always some risk in drilling a new well that if it's close to a source, it has to be a man-made source that has been, so people in this room probably have a better idea than I do whether there could be a source close by. But that would be something we would take into consideration when drilling the well, and obviously be looking for. One thing you can do ahead of time is test perhaps nearby wells to get an idea if there's any PFAS in the area.
Steve?
In this area that you're putting the new well in, there are some existing wells to residential houses that are not in the city. Is that going to suck that aquifer down so that they don't have water?
That is a standard review that happens with any municipal well, any high-capacity well in the state of Wisconsin. The DNR puts in their own model and does an investigation to look at impacts to water resources. That's mainly streams, wetlands, but also private wells. So there's going to be modeling and a hydrogeologic study that'll be done ahead of that to identify any potential concerns. The good thing for a municipality is there's more preference for a municipal water supply than for a private well. So there may be some, just because there are some impacts doesn't mean it's a deal breaker in terms of preventing a final well from going through. However, it is going to be something that'll be evaluated as part of the well approval process.
I would also offer that typically when we have that situation, we will monitor those wells if we can, if the property owner allows us, during the test pumping phase to see if there's an issue or not, just to check on it.
The only reason I brought that up was because a long time ago when the earth was green and I lived in a different spot, my well was so far down, and then all of a sudden they built a lot of houses behind me, and guess what? I ran out of water. So it was not a good day at the ranch because I had to re-drill a well.
Right.
And then when I hit that new aquifer, it was the worst water there was in the state of Wisconsin. So anyway, that's the reason I bring this up, is because sometimes it impacts other people.
Yeah, and I think that this kind of goes to what my point was, is that we need to spend the time and the energy now addressing all these questions, making sure we find the right water quality, making sure the residents that have private wells aren't affected negatively. Because like I said, it's going to be there a long time. And, it's just, it's one of our precious resources and we need to protect it. And I would say on the issue with the PFAS, I wish we could predict that. I do think that the DNR's well siting investigation process, they really are pretty stringent, which takes care of a lot of the bad things. But, I would also say that local knowledge, if somebody knows that somebody was doing something across the road at that particular area, that it's always nice to hear that from somebody to alleviate that concern. So, but again, that's why we're doing the test well. I mean, at the end of the day, the water quality testing on that test well is going to be $5,000 worth of testing we're going to do, and that's, that's not including if we do any repetitive after-packet testing.
Doug? About how long does it take you to do a test well?
Good question. So once the contractor is out on site, it's probably 3 to 4 weeks at most of getting set, drilling the test well, going through the sequence of tests that we have proposed. And then there's probably a 4 to 6 week period of waiting for water quality results, somewhere along those lines. That depends upon contractor availability and when, how available a contractor is to be out on site and to set up the project.
Okay, thank you.
Julie?
You mentioned one of the things, your MSA is a familiar name for us here in Ripon, and since, you have worked in our city, is there any research you did, prior to coming here today that you can speak more specifically about this area with your knowledge of what you know about our city? That would be one, and then I want to be fair because I asked this question of the previous presentation. Can then you also speak to a situation with another city of something that was unexpected, perhaps a challenge, and you can point to your expertise of your team as to why it was good you were on the project?
Okay, I'll go first. Rob, fill in the gaps here. But I guess in terms of research specific to Ripon, we put together the well profile is there from a previous study. What we did is lay out how the wells are in relation to the city's location and look at the aquifers that we'd be pulling from, the likely sources. I think one thing that stood out to me is just the variability of well depths and I think the variability of water quality. And there's also the sand and gravel depth is very different amongst the different wells in the city. So I already started getting into a little bit of the well design just to have an understanding of, what is going to make a difference in this project. I don't know if you have an example of.
Yeah, so I think the either the New Lisbon or the Horicon, just because they're in the proposal, I think New Lisbon I was very, very, very involved with in that. I reviewed the entire files for that project and kind of realized that there was two test wells drilled. What went south was water quality from one of the test wells that looked favorable. They hadn't negotiated right to purchase the property. And then when the property owner came back, the price was very, 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 very high. So they found another property across the road and just deemed that, you can see it from there. And they built the facility and it never pumped, even with 2 pressure filters inside. And, you know, I just said, we need to step back. I reviewed all of the well siting information from the earlier studies, met with the DNR a couple times, geologic survey, drove around Juneau County and the surrounding area for weeks, tested irrigation wells, tested private wells, went over the tracks and found a farmer that had one, and I said it's like 30 feet higher. I don't know, let's just check it out, and that's where the well is today, and still sitting there. And it's unique in that it's not like most traditional wells in Wisconsin. The well is located in this agricultural field on a 100 by 100 parcel, and then we have a pitless adapter pumping the water about 1,200 feet into a well house building adjacent to the treatment plant. So it's a little unique in that, but an accepted practice in Wisconsin, because we didn't want to get a well house on the other side of the tracks because of the train going every day. So I don't know, it was just a little different, unique project, but it took time to navigate all of that. So, does that help?
Yeah, and then I guess, so the benefit, what you're exemplifying by that is that you were saying you're willing to take a step back and look at it. You know, the question was about what an example of something that your team brings for that, but what you're saying is you're not just going to move forward for the sake of moving forward. You took a step back to try to be creative.
Right, yeah, I just, again, this test well and drilling the hole in the ground is the most important part. So, yeah, it's definitely look at the site again and just say, does it make sense or not, right?
Anyone else? Well, thank you for coming, presenting.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Appreciate it.
All right. All right, now we can discuss amongst ourselves. And Adam's got some filler for us.
Yep, so just in your packet, you have the proposals and a brief staff report. So just to kind of take a little step back, how we got here, right? We did a request for proposals for these services for the pilot well and the future design well. We had 6 responses to that proposal. You can see them all scored here. The 2 were identified as finalists, and we've not done something like this before, but they were very close, and both are capable of completing the work in staff's mind. Generally speaking, the challenges with the RFP, you're kind of in different phases, and you're kind of asking the engineering firms to respond to something that they may not know yet from a well perspective, because you do the test well and you get the water quality, and at that point it's another decision point, and it could be going backwards to finding another well site, which is not what we want to do, but could happen. It could be moving forward to designing a well that has certain treatment, on and on and on. So really this is a decision to move forward with at first the engineering and scope of the pilot well in phase 1, and then you sort of take the next phase into it after that happens. If you are not comfortable with making a decision tonight, we certainly can, come back to this next month. We're not in some huge rush, but just think that if we don't make a decision to get you a contract to begin working on this, we're probably another month out into February, maybe even March, depending on that. So you don't have to make a decision tonight unless you feel you are able to come to a decision or consensus. You can see here that we scored them incredibly close. From staff's perspective, both are capable. We're not making an outright recommendation to the council that this is who we would select. In terms of a cost perspective, we would just note that Donahue's proposal had, I think, a little bit more to it, or had more of a full scope of costs. So while price is close, they're likely even closer than what you have in front of you. So one was 120-some thousand total, and the other one was 140-something thousand, right? If you added funding into one, say MSAs, you add maybe $12,000 to $14,000. Okay, now you add another. And generally speaking, the scope at which we're looking to do this is going to change with the project as it changes. So I would just note that that there is a difference there, and likelihood is that, while this is a best estimate based on just talking and understanding what's going on here, there's a likelihood that any of these things in terms of cost go up a little bit, right, for both. But you just kind of got to weed through that because it was difficult to respond clearly in some of this. In terms of weighted, cost was not weighted as high. It was staff's opinion that generally speaking, the cost of this is going to be very similar among all of the firms, and it generally was. Some were lower, some were higher, but we wanted to bring forward the two most capable firms, and we felt that based on the scope, the project list, and the team they're bringing forward, that these two were the most complete responses. Donahue is probably the most complete response with the full scope of the RFP, and MSA with a lot of experience locally, and the only firm that our staff has worked with to actually do a well successfully in the state of Wisconsin, which I did with them in my previous community. So that is the general reason why these two were selected, and I hope that based on tonight, you agree that we have two qualified firms in front of us to pick, and ultimately the staff would say that we will work with either of them. And our goal is just to get the best possible outcome, because this is a significant project for our community. As one mentioned, this is a 100-year decision, right? So we want to make sure that we have the best possible outcome, and we feel that either of these two firms could bring that forward for Ripon.
Steve.
As far as the funding and the grants go, is there one that's better than the other? As far as their proposals go?
Generally speaking, there's no firm that's going to find a magic pot that the other firm doesn't know about, right? It's all the same, right? Whether it's safe drinking water through the DNR, whether it's CDBG, any of those funding mechanisms are available to all firms, right? I think what it comes down to is we have a strong history with MSA in getting funding. They showed that, and I feel that our experience with them and just their understanding of how administration works or how we've done things in the past certainly is an advantage. Do I think that Donahue can replicate that? Yes, because other firms are getting the same funding that MSA is applying for. So I wouldn't say that there is a distinct advantage other than maybe the experience one has through existing programs and projects within the city.
John, then Mark.
As far as like the proposals being apples for apples, you feel that Donahue has just a slight bit more included? That's what I got from your statement?
Yeah, so like the engineering and the design of a well a well house was included in one and not in the other. And then funding was mentioned but not included in MSA. They did give a price, but it's assuming that it's assuming we're actually going to do that, right? If we choose not to, which, depending on, you could say, well, we're not going to go for a certain program or apply for it. That's unlikely. But if you add that back in, right, the $20,000 difference becomes a $10,000 difference. So at the end of the day, John, in terms of completeness, it's completeness versus experience is really the discussion in my mind of why there's a difference. But I would say Donahue's proposal was likely more complete in terms of meeting the criteria of the RFP. MSA's was right behind it and supported it through the experience they have doing more wells and doing our funding.
Yeah, to me, this, it seems a lot like we've worked with MSA on multiple other projects. They're a known quantity to us. We have confidence in them. But Donahue, to me, seems maybe like more of a specialist, or this group does more wells and water treatment, and that's kind of what they do specifically. So then you're asking, do we leverage our existing our existing relationship, our existing knowledge, everything there, or do we just pick the specialist to come in and do the one project that they seem quite capable to do? But I did also want to make note of MSA's representatives here talked about not needing to treat if possible, and how those are ongoing costs, and you can kind of scope or maybe plan or maybe dig deeper, et cetera, to avoid ongoing costs. And I think that's something that's pretty crucial for infrastructure projects like this, to avoid those ongoing costs if we can. But I know that we could take that information and write it into the final contract, or write it into our testing and final, the final proposal, final acceptance. But I just wanted to point that out there specifically.
To be clear, all we're working on is the test well, and I agree with what Mark has said. We're just focused on the test well right now, and if something doesn't go right with that well, who knows? I think it'll probably be fine, but who knows? Well, then we'll have to revisit some of these other things and move the site or do something different. So I guess my feeling is that Donahue seems to be just focused on water. And to me, that's important, although MSA, they're very good at what they're doing too. And the approach that they would try not to have to remediate radon or anything like that is important. But I think Donahue obviously would do that too, because you don't want that ongoing cost if you can avoid it.
Yeah, as much as I love that we can utilize the expertise of MSA, and I liked how when he said, in the future, we'll have eyes on the ground here, and maybe we can have some cost saving. That's attractive, but also I don't think that they would do this, but I do like that when Donahue comes, these are she said she would be here. She's already done, I was impressed with the research already, and they have not worked with us already, and that it would be them. They wouldn't just call on someone who's not that expertise in the field. So I was pleasantly surprised by the work it seems like that Donahue has put in. And when I think about the future, they say that water is going to be our most precious resource for cities here in the Midwest too, and so I don't want to cut corners. For me, what city do we have if we don't have safe drinking water? And I want somebody that I think is really, really just spot on focused on this. And so I'm leaning towards Donahue because of, again, you can't get, what did you say your position is at the on the board?
Vice chair.
Yeah.
Sure.
I mean, you have that expertise right there. I'm leaning towards that. knowing that if we can be right now smart with this, maybe that saves us money down the road because we don't have to, it's going to be right away. I don't know.
Dave?
All right, thanks. One thing I'm looking at here is past experience that I've had, especially in construction. I think John can verify this. We got a company that does a lot of different things. And then we got a company that does one thing. And I have found through the years, you get someone that does one thing, they have to do it well. And I believe these guys do it well. I believe I like the well. So I do like the fact that they have the experience behind them, and this is all they do. Their reputation's big on the line here. And the other thing, by taking Donahue, is I think MSA just expects us to keep using them for everything. And this is a way of saying, you know, if we have a good company here that we think can do a better, we're going to take them. I think it'll give them a little bit of a wake-up call too. And we do give them a lot of work. They get a lot of work here. So I believe it would have a twofold effect. First, I think we'd be getting the best company for this job. And second of all, our other company that does very well, I think they won't take us for granted.
Doug?
Thank you. Adam, can you remind us, what is the cost of the full wells? At least $1 million, isn't it?
Yeah, yet to be determined, but I would say generally it's going to be a $2 million project minimum. Likelihood that could be much more. It could be 4 million or more, depending on treatment, right? I mean, if we're talking about water treatment and kind of replicating well number 5 with how that handles treatment, you could be looking at significant dollars, and that's why we did put in appropriations requests to Congress, because it's a significant, it could balloon very quickly if we don't get the right water quality. But I would say $2 to $4 million is probably a good number to be using for just the well house and some level of treatment.
Also, I'd just like to point out, I don't think MSA needs a wake-up call. They've always been spot on for us. And I don't ever particularly feel whichever way this vote will go, that they would take affront to it or as a wake-up call. They will always keep coming back, and they will always be welcome to bid on projects here. I do think they're a quality firm.
I do agree with Dave. I do think a wake-up call, or whatever you want to call it, second bids, third bids, whatever, is always helpful. And I do think we sometimes do use MSA too much. I think I brought it up a month or so ago, a question about that. But with that said, I don't believe that's a reason for me not to hire MSA. The reason I think I would like to go with Donahue is because I think they are more focused on the well, the water itself. She has experience in drilling herself from her family. I just think it's a better fit for us.
Yeah, I don't want to put too much emphasis. I'm not beating them up. I think they do excellent work for us, and it was just kind of an afterthought. I don't want you to think I'm thinking that for some reason MSA is not doing their job. They are. But human nature is human nature. And so, but I do believe Donahue's the way to go. They just have the experience. Everything else aside, that's the way to go. And I'll even make a motion that we use Donahue for this project.
I'll second it.
Do you want to select the proposal submitted by Donahue for engineering services for pilot well and municipal well number 10 development project and direct the city administration to negotiate final terms and return to the common council with an engineering service agreement for formal approval? Is that what you want to do?
Exactly.
Yeah, I'll accept that.
You read his
I'm impressed I said that even.
You did a good job there, Dave.
Just so everyone's aware, that actual wording for the motion, short of the company name, is in the staff report. That is motion by Dave, second by Doug. Mark?
I was going to make the motion.
Okay.
Oh, too bad.
Any further discussion? Roll call. John?
I just had a question. Do we need to just publicly announce the amount of money? Is it?
It'll come back.
Okay.
So you'll have a contract.
Okay.
That would be the next thing, hopefully in the first meeting in February. We'll decide if we phase it out into just the pilot wells to get them working on that, and then we revisit the other engineering. So it's kind of a split phased project as kind of, I think everybody's approached it. It's a little tricky, and if at any time we get through phase one, pilot well, and we feel we're not getting what we need, we can also stop, right? And hire another firm and do this again. But generally speaking, the intention is to, in my mind, have whatever firm does the pilot well carry this through. It just makes the most sense, and kind of carry us through in the water system development moving forward. So you'll have another contract with the spelled out language,
But I will add to what Adam just said, that having one firm start to finish on the project is a good thing, but phasing it out does give us flexibility if it's needed. Any further discussion on the motion? So the motion is to select a proposal submitted by Donahue for engineering services for the pilot well and municipal well number 10 development project, and direct city administration to negotiate final terms and return to the common council with engineering services agreement for formal approval. We'll take a roll call vote, please.
Yes.
Gallup?
Yes.
Iverson?
Yes.
Reaver?
Yes.
Stepsinger? Yes. Sorensen?
Yes.
Split?
Yes.
37?
Thank you.
I will let everybody know. Thank you.
All right, moving on to our next item, which is pay application number 7 for the Hamburg Hennie Reconstruction Project. This is in the amount of $42,805.78 with change order number 1 and are recommended for approval.
I'd like to make a motion for pay application number 7 for the Hamburg Hennie Street reconstruction in the amount of $42,805.78.
I'll second.
Motion by Doug, heard John on the second. Any discussion on the motion? Steve?
Is this a final or is there more?
This is final except for retainage.
Okay.
Thank you, Ted.
Well, any other questions or discussion?
Is it 1 year for the retainage? I know we talked about this fall.
The retainage will be dependent upon, I don't know, Alan, when we would release it. I think grass has to be growing and we have to be comfortable with everything, but the warranty is a year.
A year, okay, yeah.
But retainage generally gets paid out, shortly after the final punch list and everything's addressed.
I think they have to get beyond the need for erosion control, if I remember.
Yeah.
Any further questions or discussion? Hearing none, all is in favor of approving pay application number 7 for the Hamburg Hennie Reconstruction Project in the amount of $42,805.78. Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Approved. Next item is a resolution amending the City of Ripon Employee Handbook, creating section 720 on artificial intelligence use policy.
So in your packet, there's a brief staff report. So back in December, we did discuss this policy. There was a lot of discussion and feedback from council members. It has since been shared and additional feedback has been provided. So there are a couple minor changes, including ensuring that everybody understands that when you're producing work or you're creating work and you're having it reviewed by generative AI, that it is, your responsibility and it is, your name behind it, as well as then the idea of creating a list of tools that are kind of allowed or paid for or a part of city subscriptions, that it would be an allowable program or platform to use, just to kind of give people or staff an idea of just an approved list or where we would recommend they go, or to make sure that we don't have duplicating accounts, things of that nature. In addition to that, we've put together for staff a compliance cheat sheet that just literally kind of really breaks this down for them based on the policy to understand, is it an approved tool? Are they making sure that it is being reviewed by humans, has the list? And then we also have, through existing training platforms through our IT service, we have AI courses available to staff where they can go get trained on AI within our subscription of cybersecurity. There's classes that we can promote, so we have those listed as well. So there's cybersecurity training for AI. There's platform-specific trainings to show people how to do, say, use ChatGPT or whatever else, right? So there's training behind the policy, so we're not just sitting here kind of in no man's land with this with our staff. We would recommend adopting this resolution, and certainly if we find things evolving or a need to address additional things, we can bring back amendments, but generally speaking, staff has reviewed, and it's a very, very solid start to handling this issue, and based off of best practices from across other municipalities and the review of the council and staff who will be governed by the policy.
Just two things that I wanted to point out. I really like the call-outs for any protected data, any protected information, that those should never be going into the tools. That's really helpful, as just always a reminder to be wary and know what data is considered protected data or information. And then also the line here of that the content must be reviewed by a human prior to use, publication, or distribution to ensure accuracy, avoid bias, and confirm appropriateness. I certainly believe that any of these AI tools can really help save time, really, make things easier to digest or get through things. But at the end of the day, each individual is responsible for their tasks and jobs, so that it's always good to call that out and make sure that we aren't kind of blindly going through and accepting the feedback loop of the tools here, especially towards some biases and accuracies. So those are my 2 points. I think that was really good to see called out in here.
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution amending the City of Ripon Employee Handbook, creating Section 720, Artificial Intelligence AI Use Policy.
I'll second.
A motion by John, second by Mark. Further discussion? Last time, is there any further discussion? Have a roll call vote on the resolution amending the City of Ripon Employee Handbook, creating Section 720, Artificial Intelligence Use Policy.
Baker?
Yes.
Gallup?
Yes.
Iverson?
Yes.
Rivas?
Yes.
Schaffner? Yes. Jorgensen?
Yes.
Split?
Yes.
period 7.
Thank you. All right, moving on to project updates and staff reports. Who do we have left? PD, anyone? Anything? No? Diane, do you have anything?
No, not at this time. Thank you.
Adam?
I didn't have a report, but I was asked to just say that there will be a public meeting on the Fond du Lac County Jail project held by the League of Women Voters on February 11th at 6 o'clock at City Hall, if there's anybody interested in attending and learning about that project. That's all I have.
All right.
I have a question about that. I understand that, that's again at the county, we have our local representatives at the county who have talked about this project, but do you think that they will inform us as a city at some point? Will there ever be kind of a formal information sharing from them for this, do you foresee?
I know there's been discussions and forums held in different formats at a county level. I don't know if those have been more like this one, based on like individual county supervisors holding them. I don't think there's been necessarily an official, county meeting other than the meetings that they've done, and they've had public meetings and county board meetings and things like that discussing this project. So
I guess my question is, do you think is it appropriate to request official information?
I think we're getting there. I think this is kind of the first step without, overstepping necessarily what's already been done. Because while I generally am pretty plugged in, I don't necessarily get over to Fond du Lac to meet about the jail anytime, and I don't know many people that do unless you're really intentional about that. That's where you're at. So they continue to do work on it, and I think you'll learn more at that meeting and then see where we can go from there locally if we need to bring anything else forward.
Sounds good, thanks.
I just have a quick question. Diane, you sent out an email the other day through the city, and do we right now have voting on the internet?
To vote
For anything, council or whatever,
Like the system that we use to run the meetings, is that what was sent out?
I don't know, it was on the bottom there, and I thought, well, didn't you need voter ID for stuff if you were voting for something?
Oh, to register, you could register to vote online, but no, you cannot vote online.
Well, no, I just want to clarify that, because like I said, you sent it out on the city email thing, and I was like, what?
I think in your signature, you have a register to vote now link that takes to the myvote.wi.gov website.
That's
it. Yeah, I didn't read it. In the signature, yeah.
So, yeah, on my signature, I have a link to take you to my vote where you can go ahead and register.
Okay. All right, now I understand where you're coming from, because it sounded like you could vote over online, and it was like, what?
No, you can't do that.
No, and like you say, you gotta cover your bases, otherwise,
Any questions for Adam? No? All right, my only communication tonight is we are mostly through our cold snap here, but a few more days to go. Check on neighbors, friends, make sure everyone is in good shape. Look out for your neighbors, friends, and family. Any future agenda items or comments from council? Mark?
I would like to hear in some future meeting a short overview of the flock camera system, how we're using it, what the benefits to the city are, and then is there any sort of contract that we are entered into, and then what oversight, or if there's any abuses that might occur of the system, how those are handled.
I would also like to know.
So a general report on
Just
flock.
general, yep, just because it is my understanding that we're using it, we are in that system with the cameras, and I would just like a very brief overview of those points.
Okay. Anyone else? If there is No other future agenda items or comments? At this time, I'll seek a motion to adjourn to closed session under Wisconsin statutes 19.851G, conferring with legal counsel for the governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is or likely to become involved, with the topic being the Public Works Facility change order and payment application. We will also review council minutes from closed session on October 27th, 2025.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Mark, second by Steve. All those in favor of adjourning to closed session, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned to closed session at 8:28. If you want to take 5-10 minutes.